What up everybody, my name is Rob Barthard. I am an author on Orbit Books. Specifically, I am the author of this Orbit book. It's called Tracer. It is my very first novel. It is about parkour in space. It's got explosions, it's got action, it's got everything. It's amazing. You're going to love it. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit. I'm going to do a bit of a live reading from it. But the purpose of this amazing little Periscope stream is to show you where I write. And we're going to do that too. I'm going to take you over to where I put my words down. Before that, though, I want to show you something. There's a bit of writer advice that goes never write with a view. So that people who say that don't have a view like I do. This is the view from our apartment. We live in Vancouver. And this is downtown Vancouver. That's the mountain we go snowboarding on. There is a park, like one of the biggest parks in the world, 10 minutes that way. And right now we just got this. So yeah, this is our absolutely amazing view. I lived in London for 7 years. We moved here about a year ago so my fiance could study. And this city is just incredible, as you can see from the view. Also, another thing, a lot of writers have, they've got a shed or something, or a studio or a study they go to. I don't, unfortunately. I've just got a little spot in our apartment. But there's an advantage to this. Our first apartment in London was a tiny little shoebox. This one, it costs about like it's two-thirds of the price, and it's about 1.5 times the size. People like to say that Vancouver's expensive. Don't believe them, they're lying. Anyway, let me actually show you where I write. It's a little nook just off the kitchen, and I've just kind of tried to make it a sort of a physical extension of my brain. So let me show you a couple of things in it. First, I want to show you the most important thing, which is the whiskey cabinets right here. I don't think any writer should be without a good supply of booze. My particular favorite is Writer's Tears, which is a very strong still whiskey that I got for my birthday, and has gotten me through a lot of gotten me through a lot of writer's block. What else we got here? We have a 12-year-old Kulila. We have a Gentleman Jack, which is very nice, very smooth sipping whiskey. Anyway, as I said, very, very important to have whiskey. Around here, if you just bring the camera around here, this is the shelf where I put my shit. I am, first of all, one of the few people on the planet who still actually collects CDs. I buy rap CDs. We have a whole bunch of them here. We got the new Run the Jewels, we got Shad, we got Grease, we got Dilated Peoples. We also have a few copies of a rap album that I put out a couple years ago. I actually recorded and released my own album. It was this one. I still think it's very cool. Surprisingly, did not actually lose money on it. Printed 200 copies. Managed to sell most of them. Only got about 10 left. So yeah, this is kind of a rarity now. What else we got here? My one and only piece of video game memorabilia. This is the gun from the video game Bayonetta. Please don't ask me why I have this or what made me buy it. It was just kind of one of those things that I thought I should have. I still love that video game. It's very, very cool. What else? Okay, let's talk about the desk itself. Now, there's a story behind this desk. I bought it for £1 in 2013. And I found it on eBay. I was like, yes, this is the desk for me, £1. Downside to that, though, is I had to hire a car at a cost of £70 to go over to Romford in Essex to actually get the bloody thing and bring it back. But I'm glad I did. This is the single best desk I have ever owned. It's made by IKEA, and they don't make it anymore, by the way. You won't find this desk in an IKEA store at all. And I love this desk so much that when we moved over here, it was the one piece of furniture, excuse me, that we actually packed into a box and brought over here and reassembled. So glad I did. It's just, yeah, I love this desk. If you come a little closer, this is pretty much where I sit and where I do my writing. I'm getting my ergonomics on as well. I have a kick-ass little ergonomic mouse, which looks like a really cool joystick. I've got the split keyboard. And really, I'd love to say that, I sit on a couch somewhere or in an easy chair and hand write all my stories. There's one slight problem with that, though. I'm just going to show you what my writing looks like. This is why I do everything by computer and nothing by hand, because that is my handwriting. I can barely read that sometimes, let alone anybody expected to edit that shit, so that's not happening. Oh, by the way, very cool longboard, just on the right there. I'm slowly learning to longboard. Vancouver's very, very good for that. It's very popular here. I'm not very good at it yet. I managed to break my arm last year. Not very smart. But hopefully I will get better, and hopefully I will not die of a longboarding accident before the book is released. Hang on. Sorry, I haven't talked this much in ages. Okay. Oh, one other thing before we get to the book itself. Check up there. That is one of my favorite pictures in the world. It came from Singapore. I was flying to Australia a couple of years ago, and I stopped over in Singapore for the night. And don't ask me how, but I managed to get myself into a street art exhibition, and I bought that. I mean, I know this makes me sound like a total hipster douchebag. It's not. I was literally just stumbled onto it by accident and saw that and bought it. It's by a really cool graffiti artist called Clog2. And yeah, that's one of the few pieces of art I've got up here. Behind me, while I'm thinking about it, that's Origin of the Species on the wall. My amazing fiancée, who is also the amazing camerawoman. Say hi, amazing camerawoman. There you go. She got that for me. So, yeah, this is pretty much where I do my thing. And what I'm going to do now, after I've had another restorative glug of water, is I'm going to read from the first couple of chapters of this book, Tracer, which took me a lot of work to put together, and I think you're absolutely going to love. Very briefly, just so you have an idea of the story, it's set on a space station called Outer Earth, which holds the last of humanity, and it's about a package courier who takes cargo across the station, and what happens when she discovers that she's carrying, excuse me, something really, really gruesome. My voice is dying on me a little bit, you're just going to have to bear with me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the prologue of the book and the very first chapter, just to give you a little bit of a flavour. But first, I'm going to just soothe my voice. Again, just bear with me on this one. Okay, here we go. 7 years ago. The ship is breaking up around them. The hull is twisting and creaking, like it's trying to tear away from the heat of re-entry. The outer panels are snapping off, hurtling past the cockpit viewports, black blurs against the dull orange glow. The ship's second-in-command, Singh, is tearing at her seat straps, as if getting loose will be enough to save her. She's yelling at the captain, seated beside her, but he pays her no attention. The flight deck below them is a sea of flashing red, the crew spinning in their chairs, hunting for something, anything they can use. They have checklists for these situations, but there's no checklist for when a ship, plunging belly down through the Earth's atmosphere to maximize the drag, gets flipped over by an explosion deep in the guts of the engine, sending it first into a spin and then into a screaming nosedive. Now it's spearing through the atmosphere, the friction tearing it to pieces. The captain doesn't raise his voice. "We have to eject the rear module," he says. Singh's eyes go wide. "Captain." He ignores her, reaching up to touch the communicator in his ear. "Officer Yamamoto," he says, speaking as clearly as he can. "Cut the rear module loose." Koji Yamamoto stares up at him. His eyes are huge, his mouth slightly open. He's the youngest crew member, barely 18. The captain has to say his name again before he turns and hammers on the touchscreens. The loudest bang of all shudders through the ship as its entire rear third explodes away. Now the ship and its crew are tumbling end over end, the movement forcing them back in their seats. The captain's stomach feels like it's broken free of its moorings. He waits for the tumbling to stop, for the ship to right itself. 3 seconds. 5. He sees his wife's face, his daughter's. No, don't think about them. Think about the ship. "Guidance systems are gone," McAllister shouts, her voice distorting over the comms. "The core's down. I got nothing." "Command's heard our mayday," Dominguez says. McAllister's straps snap. She's hurled out of the chair, thudding off the control panel, leaving a dark red spatter of blood across the screen. Yamamoto reaches for her, forgetting that he's still strapped in. Singh is screaming. "Dominguez," says the captain, "patch me through." Dominguez tears his eyes away from the injured McAllister. A second later, his hands are flying across the controls. A burst of static sounds in the captain's comms unit, followed by 2 quick beeps. He doesn't bother with radio protocol. "Ship is on a collision path. We're going to try to crash land. If we..." "John." Foster doesn't have to identify himself. His voice is etched into the captain's memory from dozens of flight briefings and planning sessions and quiet conversations in the pilot's bar. The captain doesn't know if the rest of Flight Command are listening in, and he doesn't care. "Marshal," he says, "I think I can bring the ship down. We'll activate our emergency beacon. Sit tight until you can get to us." "I'm sorry, John. There's nothing I can do." "What are you talking about?" There's another bang, and then a roar, as if the ship is caught in the jaws of an enormous beast. The captain turns to look at Singh, but she's gone. So is the side of the ship. There's nothing but a jagged gash, the edge is a mess of torn metal and sputtering wires. The awful orange glow is coming in, its fingers reaching for him, and he can feel the heat baking on his skin. "Marshall, listen to me," the captain says, but Marshall is gone too. The captain can see the sky beyond the ship, beyond the flames. It's blue, clearer than he could have ever imagined. It fades to black where it reaches the upper atmosphere, and the space beyond that is pinpricked with stars. One of those stars is outer Earth. Maybe I can find it, the captain thinks, if I look hard enough. He can feel the anger, the disbelief at Marshall's words, but he refuses to let it take hold. He tells himself that outer Earth will send help. They have to. He tries to picture the faces of his family, tries to hold them uppermost in his mind, but the roaring and the heat are everywhere, and he can't. It's the end of the prologue. I'm going to read you one more chapter, which is the very first chapter. It's where you meet the hero of the story, whose name is Riley. Okay, here we go. My name is Riley Hale, and when I run, the world disappears. Feet pounding, heart thudding, steel plates thundering under my feet as I run, high up on level 6, keeping a good momentum as I move through the darkened corridors. I focus on the next step, on the in-out push-pull of my breathing. Stride, land, cushion, spring, repeat. The station is a tight warren of crawl spaces and vents around me, every surface metal, etched with ancient graffiti. "She's over there!" The shout comes from behind me, down the other end of the corridor. The skittering footsteps that follow it echo off the walls. I thought I'd lost these idiots back at the sector border. Now I have to outrun them all over again. I got lost in the rhythm of running. Always dangerous when someone's trying to jack your cargo. I refuse to waste breath on cursing, but one of my exhales turns into a growl of frustration. The Lyran might not be as fast as I am, but they obviously don't give up. I go from a jog to a sprint, my pack juddering on my spine as I pump my arms even harder. A tiny bead of sweat touches my eye, sizzling and stinging. I ignore it. No tracer in my crew has ever failed to deliver their cargo, and I am not going to be the first. I round the corner and nearly slam into a crush of people. There are 5 of them sauntering down the corridor, talking among themselves, but I'm already reacting, pushing off with my other foot, springing in the direction of the wall. I bring my other foot up to meet it, flattening it against the metal and tucking my left knee to my chest. The momentum keeps me going forwards even as I'm pushing off, exhaling with a woof as I squeeze through the space between the people and the wall. My right foot comes down and I'm instantly in motion again. Full momentum, a perfect tic-tac. The Lyran are close behind, colliding with the group, bowling them over in a mess of confused shouts. But I've got the edge now. Their cries fade into the distance. There's not a lot you can move between sectors without paying off the gangs, not unless you know where and how to cross. Tracers do, and that's why we exist. If you need to get a package, if you need to get something to someone, or you've got a little package you don't want the gangs knowing about, you come find us. We'll get it there, for a price of course. And if you come to my crew, the Devil Dancers, we'll get it there fast. The corridor exit looms, and then I'm out, into the gallery. After the corridors, the giant lights illuminating the massive open area are blinding. Corridor becomes catwalk, bordered with rusted metal railings, and the sound of my footfalls fades away, whirling off into the open space. I catch a glimpse of the diagram on the far wall, still legible 100 years after it was painted. A scale picture of the station, the core at the centre, a giant sphere which houses the main fusion reactor. Shooting out from it on either side, 2 spokes connected to an enormous ring, the main body. And under it, faded to almost nothing after over a century, Outer Earth Orbit Preservation Module, founded AD 2234. Ahead of me, more people emerge from the far entrance to the catwalk. A group of teenage girls, packed tight, talking loudly among themselves. I count 10, 15. No! They haven't seen me. I'm heading full tilt towards them. Without breaking stride, I grab the right-hand railing of the catwalk and launch myself up and over, into space. For a second, there's no noise but the air rushing past me. The sound of the girls' conversation vanishes like someone turned down a volume knob. I can see all the way down to the bottom of the gallery, 100 feet below, picking out details snatched from the gaps in the web of crisscrossing catwalks. The floor is a mess of broken benches and circular flower beds with nothing in them. There are 2 young girls skipping back and forth over a line they've drawn on the floor. One is wearing a faded smock. I can just make out the word Astro on the back as it twirls around her. A light above them is flickering off on off, and their shadows flit in and out on the wall behind them, dancing off metal plates. My own shadow is spread out before me, split by the catwalks, a black shape broken on rusted railings. On one of the catwalks lower down, two men are arguing, pushing each other. One man throws a punch, his target dodging back as the group around them screams dull threats. I jumped off the catwalk without checking my landing zone. I don't even want to think what Amira would do if she found out. Explode, probably, because if there's someone under me and I hit them from above, it's not just a broken ankle I'm looking at. Time seems frozen. I flick my eyes towards the level 5 catwalk rushing towards me. It's empty. Not a person in sight, not even further along. I pull my legs up, lift my arms, and brace for the landing. Contact! The noise returns, a bang that snaps my head back even as I'm rolling forwards. On instinct, I twist sideways, so the impact can travel across rather than up my spine. My right hand hits the ground, the sharp edges of the steel beveling scraping my palm, and I push upwards, arching my back so my pack can fit into the roll. Then I'm up and running, heading for the dark catwalk exit on the far side. I can hear the Lyran reach the catwalk above. They've spotted me, but I can tell by their angry howls that it's too late. There's no way they're making that jump. To get to where I am, they'll have to fight their way through the stairwells on the far side, and by then I'll be long gone. Never try outrun a devil dancer, boys, I mutter between breaths. And that's it. That's the first 2 chapters of Tracer. Thank you.